everyone, and welcome. It's Nova Radio Northeast 102.5 FM, April the 15th, 2020, and we're here for the Spanish Announce Table once again on a Wednesday evening between 8 and 10. My name is Wayne Madden, and in a very sort of Hollywood Squares type show tonight, we welcome guests from all over the region as we are doing our best to keep safe, stay strong, stay positive during the current situation. Indeed, for those of you not watching the video uplink, you won't see them waving, or indeed one of them sitting there sinisterly wearing a mask, pretending to be in character. Indeed, I'd like to welcome you all and thank you all for being here this afternoon. For those of you listening in Radioland on 102.5 FM, we have with us this evening Mr. Neil McGeever, Mr. Lucas Chappell, Mr. James Chilvers, Mr. Rob Lowe, and somewhere in the darkness of both his heart and this radio station, the man who keeps all the gears turning, it is, of course, Mr. Damien Stone. Welcome to all of you.
Hey,
Hello. Oh, yes. Oh, we'll hear you. Hi.
Hello.
That's okay. Excellent. Lovely. Looking fantastic. What such lovely, beautiful, happy faces. I was going to say something else there. It might have been deeply inappropriate, so we'll stop. No. You should know about inappropriate, Rob. Let's not. So that's more from Dennis, your twin brother, and all that. Anyway, once again, you're very welcome here to Nova Radio Northeast for this week's edition of the Spanish Announce Table. You might be fooled into thinking that because everybody is locked away and their movements are restricted, they're following either a lockdown or a stay-at-home order, or indeed whatever the French call it. Depending on where in the world you are, you're following some kind of restriction. And indeed, you might think that leaves us with nothing to talk about. But indeed, no, we're not the soccer show, we're the wrestling show. So we have absolutely loads to talk about. Where the hell do we start? Lucas, if I turn to you, you brought up a lot of interesting topics as you normally do through the Facebook page. But let's start this week with Ronda Rousey. This is quite an interesting one. What's going on with Ronda? What's been happening? As his video is now having trouble connecting, so we might have lost the audio on feed. Are we back? Are we back with Lucas?
I don't think I ever left. Or was it just...
Oh, right. Okay, never mind.
I think
it was like a live moment where I was looking at the feed. You were gone, so I was trying to... Yes, tell us about Ronda, live from live. Tell us about Ronda Rousey.
Okay, so Ronda Rousey has been making some comments online through tweets, it looks like a work, trying to build up a new storyline to come back, to build some heel heat, to solidify herself as a bad guy, to draw some heat. The issue is that she's been shooting on the wrestling business and using words like fake, and really undermining wrestling to the point where I'm slightly worried if she gets back in the ring now that someone's going to potato her in the face to teach her a lesson. But a lot of wrestlers have replied to Ronda. I know Nia Jax and Lana, amongst others, have all sort of stood up for the wrestling business, saying...
Is he still there? I think we...
You froze for a second.
That's okay. Keep going.
Lost you guys. Is it me that's disappearing, or...?
Yeah, you froze for a second, yeah.
You know what? On my end, I'm still there, but you guys have disappeared. All right, okay, cool. I am still here. The thing is, if it's not a work and it's a shoot, and that's extremely disrespectful to the wrestling business. If it is a work, great, it's brought some good heel heat, but it's done in a completely wrong way because she's calling wrestling fake, and that's like the cardinal thing. That's the one no-no that you never do in promo work. So it's almost like in WCW when they said, "Oh, he's gone off the script here," things like that. It's almost like a step too far.
This is a bit like the whole WrestleMania 7 Hulk Hogan Sergeant Slaughter type thing. So, I mean, like she's, you're lucky if she's not getting spit on in McDonald's, that kind of thing. Well, McDonald's was open. But I mean, the whole, the whole thing would be, of course, I think she's saying that the fans never respected her enough, and that if she'd been respected by the fans, she would have given them as much time as she neglected her family, and that neglecting family and the spirit of the fans meant that Yeah.
And she's also made comments about not wanting to work full time anymore. You could argue that she never really did work full time, but it's an odd situation because it's good to see somebody being a proper heel and getting some genuine heat, but it's done at the expense of the wrestling business and in spite of the wrestling business. It's sort of working in harmony with it, like the great heels used to back in the day, back in the 80s, back in the 90s, back in the 70s.
Yes.
Whereas now it's almost like it's a step too far, almost, where if this is a shoot, she's an idiot for doing it. If it's at work, then whoever's drawn this up for her is an even bigger idiot. So it's a really weird situation where I assume this is leading to a Ronda comeback later on in the year, maybe after SummerSlam.
Okay.
I don't know what on earth is going on. Nia Jax looked like livid with her. Again, this could all be at work, and it could be just her maybe building into a match when she comes back. But if it's not, Jax took her head off.
I have to agree with you. I was surprised not to see Ronda back at WrestleMania this year, to be honest. I felt that was almost a natural foregone conclusion that, of course,
me too,
as stars do, left at one WrestleMania, return at the next, and I felt that seemed to be a kind of, to be honest, I was surprised she was away so long. What was the original reason? Was there a legitimate injury there for why she left?
The family. She wanted to start a family, and she hasn't since. So she signed a 3-year deal, and now she's just entering into the final year now. So basically, she did 3 years, but only worked 2 of them. So whether or not she gets a contract extension, or if they make her work further year, maybe after for the time she had off, like they do when you're injured, they add that time onto your contract. I don't know if they're going to do that. But she's only got another year contracted left, so they might add that time on to the end of the contract. I don't know.
So what are we thinking, lads? Is she faking it or is she real? I mean, what's going on?
Work.
I don't know. I think it's everything I've read. Every time we see something like this, we think it's a work, and it never is. We always give WWE too much credit for doing these things, and it's never a work. So I'm going to assume it's not.
Oh. Well, that's. I mean, I'd like to. I think it'd be fun if it was.
I'd like it to be, but and I think it's really disrespectful.
Yeah,
if it isn't. But I genuinely think it could be. She's really upset with the business, with the fans, and that's how it came across. Anyway,
WWE be that stupid to call wrestling fake in their own? I mean, she did it before. They featured it on Raw, so maybe.
If this had actually happened on Raw, then I'd think yes.
They mentioned it on Raw.
But the fact that it hasn't, it has been on Raw. You see, because I don't have BT Sport.
No, they mentioned her on Raw this week. Only in passing, but it's the first time they mentioned her in a long time. I think it was Shayna Baszler coming out to the ring, something, best friend of Ronda Rousey, who we haven't seen in a while, or something like that, and then it was quickly moved on, just in passing.
Yeah.
So they're kicking her name out there then, right? Well, that could be.
There's a possibility.
If she's still under contract, maybe they do want to still mention her from time to time. But...
What are we thinking? Yeah. Is it real or is it fake?
I don't know, because on one hand you could say they're trying to make her into like what CM Punk was about 10 years ago, but on the other hand, like, do they want to damage the property that much? And the fact that they want to like put it out there, oh yeah, wrestling's fake. I know that we've long gone past the reality era now, where everything was like, oh yeah, we know it's not real and all that business. But I think they want to try and recreate what they had with CM Punk about 9-10 years ago, and say, oh, this is a person who speaks the mind, or this is a person from outside of the sport, blah blah blah. But she said stupid things in the past, hasn't she? So it could well easily be her just being stupid, basically.
James, I'll come to you. That's a magnificent beard, by the way. For those
I had a bit like that.
We just
I'm
take
thinking about growing my hair long again as well.
If we just take a moment to praise James's beard, if I tell a quick story as well, for those of you who don't know, the first time that I ever met James, we used to work in the same job together, and James had some training and a photograph taken for his staff badge in work. And he had long hair and a beard, and they took the photograph, and the photograph went on your staff badge. Now, for whatever reason, whether it was that night or that weekend, James went home and decided to shave off the beard and the mustache and cut the hair. And so for the rest of the time in that employment, whenever I saw James, he did not look like the person on his staff badge. And I was always confused when I first met him to think that he'd robbed someone else's staff badge and he was just using it because he couldn't find his own. And it turned out it was yourself.
I was always late for work because security were like, "What? Who are you? That's not you on your badge." I was like, "Come on, mate, you know who I am now."
So, what do we think about Rhonda? Do we think it's real? Do we think it's fake?
With Neil saying that she's got a 3-year contract and she's still got another year to go, maybe it's her trying to get out of that contract.
Yes.
By undermining the WWE and the business.
It's interesting actually. When you said there was a 3-year contract, am I right in thinking then she did a year, she took a year off to have a family, and so she has a year left. So out of a 3-year contract so far, she's only done 1 year. So effectively 3 years' money for 1 year's work, which isn't a bad return if she gets away with it.
No, that's why they might do what they do with when you're injured and add that time. They tag that time onto your end of your contract, so you still made your. I can't remember the term for it now, but the maximum amount, the minimum amount they have to pay you when you exceed your. I can't remember what it's called, but there's like a certain amount that they pay you for. And then, so for instance, as like the Revival, they weren't getting paid up until they got released recently because they'd already earned their full amount for that contract already in doing live shows and extra appearances and so on and so forth. So they put that amount, not getting paid anymore. So if you're injured and you've got a 3-year contract and you can spend 6 months of that injured, they can add that 6 months onto the end of your contract and make you work for the extra 6 months. They did it with Luke Harper, and I think they did it with Matt Hardy, they did it with the fans do it with the Revival. So if you've been injured, they did it with Rey Mysterio when his last one several years ago. Where if you've been injured, add that time on to the end of your contract. I don't know if they're going to do that with this.
That's
business standpoint, they probably should.
I always, on an aside, I always thought it was like really funny how Gilbert was the light heavyweight champion, and he turned up randomly on Sunday Night Heat one night just to lose to Rios, and he hadn't been on television in months, and issues. And SA comes out of nowhere and just kind of pins him in about 2 or 2.5 minutes or something. I always
Real brilliant, wasn't he?
Yeah. He had some great talent, and to be fair, obviously the attention was on him because Lita was his sort of valet at the time, and that was the start of her career. But it was a shame for him because he was a fantastic performer. He was a really top-notch guy.
Yeah, he was brilliant. Really, really good.
Is he still going to Mexico under Aguilera, or?
Yeah.
Oh, job.
I think that's one of the first examples I can remember where even in that match when he was coming to the ring to beat him for the light heavyweight title, the commentator was like, "Now you may know this guy by another name, but we're told he now wrestles under S.A. Rios," which I thought was really weird because rarely nowadays, if ever, would you hear somebody there was one, I think, where Cactus Jack showed up in WCW and they referred to him as Mankind, or there was vice versa.
Vice versa, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when Rios first turned up on the WWE programming, he seemed to be presented and appear under the name Papi Chulo, which I think might have been why they said, "Oh, you might know this fella under a different name." Because I think,
Chulo.
yeah. But
Speaking of people,
That
though,
was his name in Impact, wasn't it?
no, he went back to Aguila in Impact, as far as I'm aware.
Okay. I know he was Mr. Aguilar in AAA, wasn't it, in CMML? I swear he was Papachulo somewhere else in America, as well as WWF. I've heard that outside of the Attitude Era. I've heard that somewhere else, I swear. Maybe I haven't. Maybe I'm
Oh, no.
thinking of...
Do you remember when Low Key turned up in the NXT game show and he was called like Kama or something stupid like that?
Caval, yeah.
Caval. Why didn't they not just call him Low Key?
Back then, they just
Or
let
even
you use
Senshi.
names. Didn't they? Now they will. Now they'll let you sort of use
Yeah.
indie name, but
But
back
CM
then,
Punk never had to change his name, which is always
no, that's a point.
a
But he
surprise
was
to me.
around
Yeah,
that era when they used to make you change your name as well.
Mhm.
Like, he was one of that ilk
Yeah,
where they
exactly.
would make you become
and Taz
Christopher or
changed his name. That was like the worst kept secret in history when like Taz was going to come out at the Royal Rumble and the whole audience chanting Taz,
Taz with
Taz.
two Z's.
That's it.
Who could the mystery opponent be? I've no idea. Taz, 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 Taz.
There's big signs in the crowd saying Taz.
Yeah.
I must admit, ever since hearing the old interview with him, where he was saying that he'd modelled his original theme, like the original theme music he had was modelled around "Can't Explain" by the Who. It's just completely changed the way I hear that when I hear Taz's music now when it kicks in. It just instantly sort of gives the earworm of the Who. Yeah.
I definitely miss as well the whole. I mean, I know it only went on for a little bit, but I have very fond memories of it when Stevie Richards used to dress up as other people.
Yes.
Oh
yes.
Yeah, it was him who came out as one of the acolytes, but he had the UPN TV network's logo on his chest instead of the symbols.
I think he dressed up as Al Snow at one point, and I think he even
It's
dressed
Jericho as well, wasn't it?
And I vaguely remember him trying to make a run as Dude Love, or having to go as Dude Love.
Yeah, yes. So, whatever happened to that guy? But I believe as well.
Just fitness, health and fitness.
I think he does something. He apparently Big Show braids his hair or something. I saw a reference to that in a TV show recently. But speaking of television shows and the likes, and yeah, let's go to that. Why not? Neil, were you watching a television show today at all? Do you want to tell us?
Yes, I was watching Homes Under the Hammer. Yeah. Oh no, that one. Sorry, wrong show. Sorry.
No,
you,
no. This is
Well,
a
on
children's
Netflix-
show. Well, it's not, but we could pretend it is.
If you refer to what I've been watching Netflix, I did try. Well, I did watch a movie. I watched the main event today on
Well,
Netflix.
why don't we talk a little bit about the Big Show first?
Oh yeah. I watched that on
Yeah,
Netflix the other day. Not for me. I don't think it's for many
many
people by the
episodes
sound
did you
of
get
things.
through?
I'm
How many episodes?
up to the third one now. So
Really?
two.
Can I tell you?
I couldn't get past the third minute of the first one.
Rob, I'm really sorry, Rob. My deep shame is that I have actually managed to watch 4 episodes of the Big
That's
Show.
more than me. I got 2.5.
Yeah, it's just one of
It
those
was
things.
horrendous. Right, have you laughed at all during it?
I've laughed at it.
I did.
Because you've got a good sense of humour. You
Not
can't
weird.
have laughed at this.
Oh, Rob, you crack me up. I've got a decent set. Oh, Rob, you.
Well,
Sorry.
you have. I mean, you know, we've talked in the past. We've talked about Alan Partridge, Blackadder, and now you're talking about the Big Show. You better not have laughed at this, mate.
No, I couldn't. I'll be honest with you, Rob. I couldn't laugh at any of it. I mean, I did think it was mildly amusing when he put the guy on the peg in the office. He got the little gym keeper and like hung him
I
up.
smirked at that and
I
sort of
suppose you
went,
probably had to be there.
Haha.
for that one.
Yeah.
There's some bits that could have been funny if they were delivered better, like where he's posing for the photo with a policeman in his arms. I thought that could have been funnier in a different way. If
Well, it all could have been funnier, couldn't it?
Yeah. That's the thing. They could have made all these jokes.
Oh.
Like my
So
dad's
I
a
watch
wrestler show.
every single episode.
You what,
What's
sorry?
that, James?
What?
I watch
Oh.
every single episode.
You've watched every
Yeah,
one.
I
What did
yeah.
you do wrong to deserve that?
And it's not even that bad. It's just very American. That's what I would say. It's a
good way to
very
put it.
American
Very
sitcom.
American.
Yeah.
To be honest,
That's what I
I
would say.
don't mind American things, and to be fair, like it's kind of the nearest comparison is it's kind of like a '90s show, like Sabrina or like
Yeah.
Eight Simple Rules or something, but it's
Yeah.
like 20 years too old. Like it's the canned
Well
laughter.
dated.
Like, it's not the
Oh, that canned laughter's horrendous. That's like the old Scooby-Doo cartoons where they used to put laughter in the background. It sounds
is.
just like it. It just tails off
Yeah.
towards the end. It's awful.
Now, Damien, you will remember now. You won't forget to put in the canned laughter when we edit this episode, okay?
Oh, absolutely. I've got a couple of drops left in the
In
tin.
front of a live studio audience, Spanish announce table. Hey!
We should definitely do a Spanish announce table sitcom with canned laughter.
Totally.
Be brilliant.
Oh, yeah, we all share a massive.
The thing is, the only reason I would continue to watch. Yes. The only reason I would continue. Yes. I would continue to watch Big Show is for the wrestler cameos. Because I know that Mark Henry and Mick Foley are in it. But,
Sorry,
yeah, somebody else.
Did you say Mark Henry and Mick Foley actually show up?
Yeah,
Yeah,
apparently
and
they're in it. Yeah.
Rikishi.
And
Who?
Rikishi.
Rikishi's in it.
Oh,
I'll
It's
watch
brilliant. It's absolute.
Right,
That
still allowed to
episode
watch
is probably
it
the best one.
Really?
We have a show to do.
Wow.
Turn the camera on.
What episode is the Rikishi one?
I'll have a look. I'm sure it's the last one. I've got Netflix open in front of me here. Two
I
takes.
might watch that one because I love
He's
Rikishi.
watching it while he's doing the show with us. That's
I'm
what
not
he's
watching
doing.
it. I'm
He's-
just.
We can't
it's
suffer
on
a whole series of this just to get to Rikishi. And this
I
reminds me of.
didn't know that was coming. To be fair.
This is
Can you
where
remember
Rob is
back in the early '90s, Harry and the Hendersons, the sitcom version where
Yes.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan turns up?
Yes.
It just reminds us of that. It's just not worth watching.
Damien,
Like the Mario show had loads of wrestlers in it as well, didn't it? The Mario
Lou
show.
Albano was Mario, wasn't
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
Roddy
Mario
Piper was in
was-
it as himself at one point.
This is why Rob, right? This is why Rob wanted this. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those out there in audio land who don't realize this, before we started filming tonight's show, Rob had said, on the video footage, is my TV in frame? And we were like, no, no, no. Now, the reason he was asking us
If
that
you're
is
going to claim I'm watching anything like that, I'll show you what I'm watching and I'll cost you your YouTube channel.
Porn.
It is. No, it's not.
Slight side note.
I'm not actually. I'm watching a repeat. Well, not a repeat. I'm going to put back on myself. WrestleMania.
Which
Oh,
year?
This year's. Yeah.
Oh,
We've
this
got.
year. You're brave.
Yeah, we've got. We've got Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley at the minute.
Match
Your
of the
favourite
weekend.
match of the night, isn't it?
Yeah, match of the weekend. So I actually rewatched the Boneyard match yesterday, and it's better second time round.
Is it?
Yeah,
Well, I've got to rewatch it then.
Good.
I was in a very odd mood when I was watching that one, so I may have to go back.
Yeah.
Well, because I really liked the Funhouse match.
Yeah.
A lot.
I love
Even though it wasn't a match. I need to stop calling that a match. It wasn't a match. But I like the Funhouse segment.
It had a ring, so
The segment.
what people need to do out there is, if you get the opportunity, go to our YouTube page. It's Spanish Announce Table. It's on YouTube. There's a couple of links through the Facebook, through profiles, through Twitter. Have a look. There's a great discussion about WrestleMania parts 1 and 2 that, of course, happened in the past 2 weeks. And there's a lot of conversation about the aftermath of that and what we thought.
And you can
Back
find that
in,
at.
unfortunately, with the Big Show. Before we move on to the main event, for anyone who's watched it, do they want to give the Big Show a score out of 5? You know, on impressions, want to give it a score out of 5? James has given it 5 out of 5. Bloody
No,
hell.
I would probably give it
a nothing.
3, maybe 4.
I'm giving it 0.
I'd give it a pinky out of 5.
Okay.
A little
1
out of 5. Because they tried.
The one with the cameos is the 6th episode.
All right, I'll watch that one then.
And
But-
the Big Show takes his wife on a cruise for their anniversary, but it's a wrestling cruise.
Okay,
The
right,
concept
you've sold us that now.
Well, I'll watch the 6th episode then on your recommendation.
I have
I'm
to
gonna watch
say,
that one.
For it, James. God help you.
It's probably the funniest episode. I'll say that.
it's funny
I'll
enough,
give
it
it
shows off how
1.3 out
good.
of 5.
Scores for the Big Show show.
You talking to me? Oh, Damien.
Yeah. So either Lucas or Rob or Damien.
Oh.
Any score?
Oh, you don't want me to score it. I watched about 4 minutes. If I couldn't stomach it, it's not really.
Well, I'll
not really fair for me.
I'll give it a V for victory.
Yeah, that's the one I would use. Yeah.
And as for Lucas, what do you think?
I'd give it a 1.3 out of 5, and that's just based solely on the wrestling cameos, the wrestling references, wrestling-related content. If it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't have even got a 1 out of 5. But the wrestling references did put a smile on my face. I didn't laugh. I did go. And for then that gets a 1.5 because there were a few interesting little wrestling references.
It kind of shows you that the Big Show's actually a fairly decent actor compared to loads of rubbish actors.
Well, I guess, yes.
There's a rubbish actors.
Yes.
There is some rubbish acting in.
So who's he better than, would you say?
In terms of wrestlers or in terms of this program?
No, in terms of rubbish actors. Who's he better than?
Yeah,
because I'm racking my brains.
Because technically, other than Hulk Hogan, I can give you that much.
Yeah. We're about good or bad wrestling actors, sorry.
Better actor than, what's his name, Ted DiBiase Jr.
Oh, you see.
Was he in
Big
something?
character that I'm not even familiar with.
In the Marine 2.
Hang on.
Or 3, was it?
Randy Savage, Vader, and Hulk Hogan were in that episode of Baywatch several years ago.
Actually, that was alright. No, they were alright in that, though. They were okay.
If you've never seen that, Vader, Randy Savage, and Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan in an episode of Baywatch when they were all in WCW.
And Kevin Sullivan.
Indeed, it's worth the price of admission on YouTube. Damien, just quickly, if I can come to you, because I know that you're in darkness on the feed, so I can't see you. Did you watch the Big Show show? And if you did, do you have a score for it?
No, the trailer put us off. To be honest, I didn't think I could stomach it. I mean, it's. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I mean, when you're on about like being one of the better sort of wrestler actor types, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this thing. But I mean, the whole premise of the Big Show show thing, sort of, it to paraphrase Mr. Cornette, it hurt my feelings so much that I actually went and dug out an old DVD with a movie called Firepower, which starred one Jim Hellwig, which based in some dystopian MMA thing.
I think you're forgetting Roddy Piper and They Live, a masterpiece of our times.
Oh, that was fantastic. That was brilliant.
Yeah, and he's good in a film called Hell Goes to Frogtown as well. It's an awful film.
I've got that on Blu-ray.
Yes, his acting's quite good in it, even though it's a terrible film. His acting's fairly good in it.
Terrible film.
One of my favourite passions in one thing.
Well, it's a weird film.
You like the Big Show show.
So,
no right for comment.
So, Damien, thank you very much. While his video, I think we've got him back. That's excellent. Neil, what else were you watching? You were watching. Now let me say it right. I saw the trailer of this, and to my mind, and you may correct me, to my mind, the trailer looked as if it was kind of like a take on Spider-Man: The Multiverse. It seemed to have kind of parallels with that of a guy who had a superpower.
I don't see that parallel, but I do see where you get the Spider-Man comparison, because obviously the first
movie.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The first Spider-Man movie, he tries to be a wrestler and he's got a really crappy suit on. So there's that comparison. And there's also the things like great power comes great responsibility, etc. There is a lot of parallels with Spider-Man, yeah, but I wouldn't compare it to Spider-Verse, no. It's more like The Mask, in a way, in the fact that he finds a mask.
Spider-Man,
Yeah. I would say The Mask meets Spider-Man meets Fighting With My Family, because it's called The Main Event. It's a kid is running away from some bullies. It's a bit like a Goosebumps, you know the Goosebumps episode with the mask?
Yeah, it's a lot like Goosebumps.
Mask. It's very like that. And he runs away from the bullies. He's a big WWE fan, and he walks into this room in a museum. I don't know why a museum has a WWE room, by the way, but wherever this museum is, I would like to go to it. And it has like Ric Flair's robe in it, and it has like an autograph from Andre and like an old wrestling poster. And he sees this mask like kind of in a cupboard, and he like picks it up, and it like does that shiny thing. And one of the like guards at the museum's like, "What are you doing here, boy?" And he's like, "Nothing." And then he says, "Tell you what, you can keep it because you found it. You can keep it." That never happens. I know.
This is definitely
that happened.
Thompson
Is
says.
that the most unrealistic thing that happens?
Museums, and
I might go into the Discovery Museum and pick up one of the animal bones and go, "Can I have this?" But
apart from the fact that a child beats up grown men, the fact that he's allowed to keep a mask is the most believable part.
That's the most unrealistic bit. But basically, it basically turns him into a really good wrestler, like in kayfabe, because this is in the world of kayfabe, this film where wrestling's real, and you can use superpowers and stuff like that. And The Miz presents NXT for some reason, and and there's a competition where if you win the tournament, you get an NXT contract and you get $50,000. And they do the backstory of the family's poor and stuff like that. And he's always wanted to be a wrestler. He's a big fan of Kofi Kingston, that sort of thing. So yeah, there's the tournament, and as you can guess, he uses the mask's powers to beat all the people, including Otis, who plays a character called Stinkface. And his finisher is doing like a really long, uncomfortable fart, which I thought that is like the longest fart I've seen on a TV film. But also, Keith Lee's good in it. Speaking about wrestlers being good actors, Keith Lee's good in it, as he's a wrestler called the Smooth Operator, where his gimmicks, where he sings everything. And so there is some good ideas in it. And I mean, the word to sum it up is it's appropriate, as in it's appropriate for the audience.
For the kids.
What age?
It was okay. It was bearable. It was just about bearable, but it wasn't. I wouldn't say it's good, but it's bearable.
Is in terms of the demographic that they're targeting, I think it's a fantastic movie. I think they're probably aiming for children age maybe 4 or 5 to 12 years old. So I think if you put yourself being age sort of 4 to 12 years old, it's going to be a fantastic movie. That's the target audience. That's the demographic. Just when you're like a 32-year-old man, it doesn't hit home, but it's probably not meant to us anyway. It's for that younger demographic, and I think it's a really good gateway movie to get younger fans who might have maybe an older brother or sister or a parent that's into wrestling, and they've been around it, so they know what wrestling is. But that might then draw them. That might hook them. It might just make them that might solidify some younger fans. And not like Total Divas, Total Bellas. You might have your husband or a wrestling fan, so you might know what wrestling is, but that might hook you in and get you that way. So WWE are really good at splintering off into things that aren't wrestling.
No, it's a good way to put it, actually. Yeah, to bring more people in. Because I know Fighting With My Family brought people back to wrestling because they saw the movie and thought, I don't know why I left it, and then like come back to it. So yeah, you're right. You're very much right.
That's why I left.
Fighting With My
Raw and think that.
How accurate was that film? Anyway, so for those who have seen it, we're scoring it out of 5. What do you give the main event?
I would say say I'm a 10-year-old kid, 5. Say I'm a 31-year-old man, 3, because it wasn't as bad as The Big Show.
That's still a respectable
there was
score.
There was some good ideas in it, and I respect the way that they've done it. So 3.
That's almost 70%. That's cool. That's all right. Yeah. No, hold on. Never mind. I'm not awful. Let's move on. Lucas, what are we given? Exactly
what Neil said. If I was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, 5 out of 5. If I'm 32-year-old me, probably around 3 out of 5, if I'm being generous. But I loved it. I'll watch it again.
It was good,
definitely watch
yeah.
it.
I mean, I wouldn't mind watching it again, of course.
Mhm.
So it wasn't
The
that bad.
Cage. I know everyone needs to give their score, so I won't.
Well, I mean,
But
considering I turn
Cage.
40 on Saturday, I'm highly doubtful I'm going to be watching this at all, to be perfectly honest with you. I think I'll give it a wide berth, but I'll trust your opinion on it.
Check out the Cage in it, because it's like the
Oh,
old blue
it's like
Cage.
the old blue one, isn't it? But not.
Oh, well, that
so
might be
much.
enough to make us watch.
It's like a mixture of the All Elite Wrestling Cage and the old Blue Bar Cage, but it's not the same as either. It's different. I think they should bring that cage onto TV. It's going to sell a lot of toys and action figures. Why not?
Fun fact: the guy who plays Samson, the rival wrestler, was actually in the Greatest Royal Rumble.
Yeah, Babatunde. He's
Babatunde,
NXT. Yeah, he's in the Performance Center. He's a regular in
Aussie.
NXT PC.
Oh, is he the guy who's like one of the tallest wrestlers in the world, kind of?
Babatunde, yeah, he was in the 50-man Greatest Royal Rumble, and he's appeared like in NXT very, very briefly shortly after that, just to be like, hey, he's a real thing. But he's more performance. So like guys like Eric Bugenhagen and people like that never appear. Like
he's in it as well, isn't he? Bugenhagen.
Yeah, like people like that. So
yeah.
people are in the upper echelon of the Performance Center, but they haven't made it to NXT TV. Is that?
Okay.
Well, for those bearing with us out there on the audio broadcast tonight, thank you for that. Apology for any technical difficulties during the last session, and we move on this week to gaming. And indeed, the reason I mention gaming is because of some news about 2K, which we will go into in just a moment. But I am very, very happy, and I'm in the process of organizing an interview for Spanish Announce Table with the creator of the game, Retromania. And Retromania Wrestling is being released on Switch, PC, Xbox, and PS4 this forthcoming July. And it is basically going to be the spiritual and proper, as they say, sequel to WrestleFest, the arcade game. They are going to basically bring back the grapple beat-em-up type game. They're going to look to bring back all the fun I have of playing WWF in your house and WrestleMania, the arcade game, and basically even WWE All-Stars on the PSP.
What is this game called again, Wayne?
This is called Retromania Wrestling, and it's going to be out in July.
The roster looks great as well.
Is this the one we were talking about 3 or 4 months ago? Or is this a different one?
That's right, yeah.
It's the same game. Right, it's the same game.
It's the same game. It's coming out in July, and it's going to be. I mean, it looks fantastic. So definitely check it out. And hopefully, when we get the creator on the show, he'll be able to give a little bit more background into who the characters going in. I mean, Tommy Dreamer, Stevie Richards, the Blue Meanie, Steve Corino. There's a couple of different people that they've managed to actually include in this game as their arcade.
There's a few new people as well, isn't there?
Yes.
Like ZSJ's in it.
Yes.
John Morrison's in it, but under a different name. He's under Johnny Retro or something, isn't it?
Of course, because everything he does is
Johnny Knight. Yes.
Yeah. But it's strange because he's signed to WWE now, so I don't know what they're going to do there. Unless he's an unlockable character. They could do what they did with Hulk Hogan on No Mercy, where you can create them.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting, actually. It'd be very, very cool. No, it's looking amazing. I mean, the developers, they're called Retrosoft Studios. They're also the publisher, and basically, as I say, it's looking to hit the PC, the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 4, and the Xbox One. And it is effectively, it's going to be the official sequel to the 1991 arcade hit WrestleFest. I don't know if any of you guys have played WrestleFest. They brought a version of it out for the touch phone a couple of years ago, which had John Cena in it, and it was a kind of like an updated type roster, and it didn't last very long. It was on the iPhone for a little while, but the original WrestleFest, I mean, it's one of those games. It's like Bart Simpson versus the Space Mutants. It's ingrained into my DNA. Turtles in Time, those type of games that you just played from a young age.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure I've been at one of their game cabinets for a little while. It was like I say, obviously 91's a bit far back in my memory. I can't remember the exact situation, but yeah, no, it was. I remember it being very, very popular game.
Yeah, so lots to look forward to there. But I have heard news that the annual 2K installment has been cancelled. Neil, what can you tell us about this?
Yeah, just one of the developers tweeted pretty much the week after WrestleMania saying that 2K21's been fully cancelled. Oh, thanks for the graphic, Wayne.
That's a graphic Retromania that I wanted to try and get a poster of it up. So there you go. Sorry, go ahead. You were saying.
Yeah, it's 2K21's basically been cancelled, and it's reported on the Daily Express. I mean, why would they lie? But basically, I think it's to do with the fact that 20 didn't get very well received critically, or in terms of sales, or in terms of like player response, because there was loads of bugs on launch, so it basically didn't look right, and there was loads of things wrong with it. I mean, I couldn't tell you the specifics. I haven't played a wrestling game for years, but from what I read, apparently this means that it's going to give leeway for a new series of games, and I'm thinking it should be the best way they could do it is if they do a new version of something like WWE All Stars that they brought out in 2011.
Yes.
What about the Fire Pro games, Neil? The Fire Pro Wrestling World Games? Because they're really, really popular.
Oh, they're good. They're good. But
they're not as well known, though, are they? But
they've always had an audience, but they've never really been a mainstream, because it's not they do use real wrestlers, but it's never been associated with a certain
I'm almost
promotion.
positive. I'm almost positive, Lucas, that there was a Fire Pro released about a year and a half ago on PS4. That there's currently a Pro version on PS4.
I'm sure there was, yeah.
I'm almost sure there is.
I know that New Japan lets them use their like copyrighted wrestlers in there.
Yes.
And there is a Fire Pro Wrestling available on Steam at the minute, and it's available for PS4.
I'm fairly sure, because I remember when, like, ages ago, when me and Mark did a show about wrestling video games, and this came up at the time, that I think it was being released that week or something. And here's to show how really unprofessional I am. Oh, there is a physical edition apparently. This might just be a fan cover.
Yeah, sorry.
There's your graphic.
It's Fire Pro Wrestling World, apparently. That's for PS4 and Steam.
Yeah. So there you go. But the 2K series, right? I mean, look, the thing is, I enjoy, realism and all that, but I think with 2K, like with a number of other sports franchises, like hockey and boxing games, they got a little bit too technical and too realistic, where I was looking for a more arcade feel. So like Fire Pro, or like Retromania Wrestling, or like WWE All Stars, or In Your House, something a little bit more kind of Street Fighter-esque beat 'em up. I mean, I could talk all day about how WWF In Your House is my favorite wrestling game of all time, but rather
it's certainly different.
I love it. I think it's got a very.
It's a lot like Mortal Kombat, isn't it? It's sort of like the wrestling version of Mortal Kombat.
Which is the T-shirt you're wearing. Very good.
Strangely enough, yes.
What was that weird WWE Immortals thing that they brought out on mobiles, where it was some sort of like it
was like fantasy based, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean that give us the. I mean that sort of thing gives us the idea of like. I mean, that they could potentially put out something that was like of a sort of Soul Blade, Soul Calibur style thing, but like set with WWE
I would like that.
characters. Yeah, I mean that.
I would love a kind of a Turok thing where like Brock Lesnar and The Rock have to like fight dinosaurs or something, something over the top.
Like a
Two
story
upper,
behind it.
Yes.
without a U with apostrophe and said it in Yorkshire. He's gone to hunt to
That's
rock.
it. That's it. Oh, we can, they're just chasing cheese down a hill. We can make this work. How do we? What's for those who are gamers both now and of course even in the past? What's your favorite? What's your favorite video game? Your favorite wrestling video game?
No Mercy.
Yeah, I
No
was going to
Mercy,
say
yeah.
No Mercy. Yeah, No Mercy. If they did a remake of No Mercy in modern day graphics with the modern day like roster, that would be perfect.
Yeah, I
I'm
agree.
surprised they didn't do a remake for like DS or 3DS of No Mercy with an updated roster.
There were a lot of
That
patches
was
there, weren't
pretty
there?
much
Like
spot on, wasn't it?
you can get a lot of like patches, can't you, from to like update it?
Yeah. They'll never release it on Virtual Console without removing all references to the wrestlers they don't want to mention anymore.
Well,
Like Chris Benoit, for example.
Yeah.
they've got
Yeah,
it.
No Mercy. I spent hours on that game.
It's
Me
a
too.
fantastic title.
Put my life on it.
Rob, have you ever been much of a gamer? What's your favorite title?
No, but I'm like you. In Your House was a good one.
Yeah.
For the original PlayStation, I think it was. Wasn't it?
Of course, it was. It
Um,
was also on the Saturn, but I only ever played it on the PlayStation.
Right. No, I thought it was very unique. I thought it was great. But my favourite one was a bit earlier than that. Was Royal Rumble, Super Nintendo.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I mean, I was only about 12 or 13 when that came out, but that was one that really sort of sticks with me. I didn't really bother after In Your House with many of them. I played WWE 2K17 a lot recently because my brother's got it, and that's about it. But I'm not a massive gamer at all. In
Fair
fact, I'm not
enough.
a gamer at all. I
That's all right.
don't even own one.
That's
That's about as much as I can. Oh no, I also played WrestleMania, the arcade game,
Oh yeah,
back
yeah,
in the early
that's one of my
90s.
favorites, yeah.
And that's about as much as I can talk about because I don't really have any real memories of any of it.
That's memory enough, Rob. It's all right. That's memory
Thank
enough.
you.
I like it.
But that was my little contribution to this.
James, moving on from there. Thank you, Rob.
Oh,
James,
you're welcome.
memories of wrestling video games, favorite wrestling video games, or just give us a song. It's okay.
I used to love the SmackDown versus Raw ones.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
2008, they were
Yeah.
quite good because the buttons were still quite basic.
Yes.
And then obviously with the 2K, it's now at the stage where you've got multiple different combinations, just do one move. And it's kind of, they need to, like you said, they need to go back to the basics. But my favorite game was a game that was just called Raw. WWF
Oh,
Raw.
for the Xbox.
Yeah, it was really good because when you created your own, you could upload music from your Xbox as your theme tune.
Oh wow.
Good.
Nice.
Yes.
But it was 2 ticks. I don't know
That
if you
one,
can see.
all right.
Oh
that
yeah,
was-
yeah. I
Yeah,
remember the
I remember that.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed playing that game, and that came out in 2002. So I would have been about 12, 13. So the ideal age for playing those kind of games, really. So I think it all depends on how old you are and what game was out when you were around that age, really.
I mean, to be fair, SmackDown 2 was a phenomenal game, and like I probably played SmackDown 2 more than any other game at the time, and still look at it very fondly. So, I mean, wrestling games, they were kind of spot on for a period there when WCW was competing against WWF in the 90s, especially on PS1. There's about 30 odd different wrestling titles over like 4 companies, including Japanese on PS1.
And ECW had a game as well, didn't they?
That's what they had too.
They had two, yes, sorry, yeah, they did.
Yeah. No. I mean, people, you see, it was on the Dreamcast as well, and a lot
Yes.
of people don't realize a lot of those games were ported to the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, Royal Rumble was on the Dreamcast. That was a great game.
That was actually a Dreamcast exclusive because Attitude
Well,
was
was
on Dreamcast, but Royal
on the
Rumble was
PS1.
Dreamcast exclusive. Yeah.
But I played Royal Rumble in the arcade, the 3D one, before I played the Dreamcast version, and it seemed more fun in the arcade. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the mood I was in at the time. I don't know, but
I think at the time you could either have 6 or 8 wrestlers on screen for the first time.
Yeah, that was the
and
first
that was
time
the
that
big draw of that game. And to be honest, graphically looking back, it still looks pretty decent.
It's all right. The Dreamcast's fine, I think, in terms of graphics.
Absolutely. Damien, any particular fond memories of wrestling video games?
My favorite one was always WCW NWO World Tour on the
beautiful, yes.
N64.
Yeah, the N64. I mean,
it was on PS1 as well, but yes, yeah.
It was there was just something about some of like the sort of extra characters that were blatantly like Japanese characters, Japanese wrestlers, but slightly off.
It was a reskin of a Japanese game, wasn't it? So they left all the Japanese wrestlers in it, but they didn't change the names, did they?
Yeah, I mean, there was one bloke on there. I'm still trying to work out who it was based on. This Brickowski. It's like this is a bloke who, for some reason, was the only bloke who had a sledgehammer in there, but he sort of looked a little bit like Vigo Constantino, but no, it was great. The old sort of Royal Rumble, the old four went together in the house before went out clubbing, doing the taking shots whenever we got eliminated out of a Royal Rumble.
Great.
Did anyone ever play the backyard wrestling game?
Yes.
Oh,
I
no,
love
but it
that.
looks fun.
Yeah, tried it before. That was unbelievable.
Like the Legends of Wrestling series, I thought it looked good at the time, and then when you got it, it was absolutely boring.
I did play Legends of Wrestling for the PS2 once. I vaguely remember some sort of weird situation where you had Sid Vicious versus Mick McManus.
Yeah, you had British wrestlers on it as well, didn't you? Yeah, like Big Daddy and Kenny had the stacks, yeah.
It was
good times.
Sorry?
I think lots of good memories. I think one of the things to do, or something to do, is to utilise the YouTube channel for an opportunity to go back and play some of the games in retrospect and give mindless opinions on them. And one of them, James, I'm very happy to say, might actually be, by complete coincidence, WWE Raw for PC, the game you mentioned on the Xbox, which was, funny enough, the first ever wrestling game anywhere to actually have the WWE, because it was just after the move from WWF.
Yeah.
Oh.
So it may actually be that game, thanks to a lovely donation from a beautiful man who has been on the show many times.
Can I guess who it is?
Paul Fairbairn, who is commonly known.
What a
as
shock!
So it's your second guess, Neil. Your second guess.
Okay, I'll let you off for that one. But yeah, I saw you had those games. Yeah. There was a WWF game on Amiga, but was one of the few Amiga games I didn't have. So yeah, called European Rampage. It was a European exclusive.
Oh, that's right.
And the graphics were all right, but I've never played it, but I've watched footage of it on YouTube before. Anyway,
so
carry on.
I believe. No, that's quite all right. I believe as well that other news that's coming in at the moment, that's kind of developing in the wrestling world, which is slightly associated for wrestling for a bit of sinister reasons, which we'll get into in a moment, which Lucas knows all about, is the XFL. Now, something's happened with the XFL. Vince McMahon's little beauty, which he handled as a chick and raised as a lovely, speckly pigeon.
Breastfed it off with big muscular teat.
Sorry?
So he breastfed it from his own muscular teat.
That's exactly it. That's it. Hand-reared and breastfed. That's right, the XFL. You shot my pigeon. No, so tell me. No, that sounded wrong, didn't it? We'll edit that out.
The name of the episode, You Shot My Pigeon.
That's it, yeah, that's the episode title right there, You Shot My Pigeon.
There we go.
Tell us, tell us a little bit about the XFL, Lucas. What has happened to it, and why is WWF concerned?
There's a few things going on. So XFL, as we know, was launched. They made the announcement sort of late, I believe it was 2018, late 2018, saying we're going to start in 2020. The season's going to kick off. It's obviously a failed project of Vince McMahon's in the past. So I mean, there was a little bit of a blemish on his record, even though the restaurant failed, the bodybuilding company failed, every other venture he's done, the movie, WWE movies has lost money. I guess the network in the long run has probably lost money if you think about pay-per-view subscriptions. His ventures outside of WWE haven't been great. He's always wanted to do American Football League. And he's tackled it this time round, no pun intended, very differently to the first time round. There was no scantily clad cheerleaders, no storylines. This was done as a legitimate professional American football company, a genuine alternative to the National Football League. I'm not an American football fan. I'm not much of a sporty person, but I've given this a go just because it was Vince McMahon, and I thought, hey, I'll give it a chance. And I didn't mind the product, but because I don't really know the rules, I had to have someone explain it to me. But, you know, I think if I'd have been an American football fan, I would have really, really got into it. And I think certainly if I was ever in a room full of people and they're watching, I'd definitely sit down and get invested. Since the coronavirus has sort of taken over the headlines and become a pandemic across the world, it's actually led the XFL to go bankrupt. They've had to file for bankruptcy. So they've fired all members of staff with immediate effect, and they're no longer trading. Vince McMahon's looking to sell the business, but obviously there's a lot of debt associated with the business. I think, I don't have the figures in front of me. I know 300 million for something, and then possibly 300 million for something else. So whether that's 600 million altogether, I'm not sure. Is how much he was willing to put in. How much of that he did put in, I don't know. It's all completely flopped. It's gone under. I do feel kind of bad for him in a way, because the ratings were good. They were declining, but they weren't nosediving. You know, it did have a good reception. It could have been better, but so could a lot of things. It feels a bit out of the blue, but really they have no choice with this virus and football players getting ill. It's meant they have had to terminate business. It's left a bad reputation amongst New York, the Wall Street people. Vince McMahon has kind of been a bit deceptive with this. He was not sued, but there was like an investigation launched by one of the other investors on the board of directors, because they thought he might have been using WWE money to fund the XFL, which is, you have to be, when you're a trading company, you have to be straight up. You have to be, say where your funding's coming from, and also the investors, the WWE investors, don't want their money from their baby spent on projects that are nothing to do with WWE. Vince McMahon was very clear that's not the case. It's all coming from his own pocket. WWE investors don't need to worry. And then since they filed for bankruptcy, it's come to light that actually WWE owned 23% of XFL. So he was using WWE funds. So a lot of people on Wall Street feel really deceived by Vince McMahon. It's left a really sour taste in people's mouths. He has changed some very, very small legal law print at the very last minute back in July last year, meaning that if something like this would ever come to light and something like this would happen, he sort of dodges the bullet legally for whatever reason. Now, I'm not a legal expert. I don't know what it was that he's put in there or what it was, but something was tweaked in July, very minor, that's just meant that he's refracted the majority of the blame for this. So I don't see any legal ramifications for Vince. But who knows? He's got friends in extremely high places, as we all know. WWE is essential work at the moment. So like your frontline policemen and your nurses and your people supplying food. Apparently WWE is also deemed as essential. So someone's got some friends in high places and that we all know. But it is a shame to see the XFL go under.
Yeah.
Also, it was keeping Vince McMahon away from WWE. And if you've been watching the content, that's been a really good thing. Now I'm worried that he's going to have more time to focus on WWE, which is a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, the XFL, I'm not a big footy fan. I don't watch American football. I didn't know the rules. I could have got into it if I was that way inclined. I really could have seen myself going into it. Ratings weren't dreadful. Like I said, they were declining, but they weren't nosediving. I think it's a real shame. I think it's a real shame because obviously what we've got now is an angry Vince McMahon on our hands and someone whose pride is hurt. He's had a disease attack his business. He's been told what to do when he doesn't like being told what to do. Things out of his control. He's had his XFL destroyed. This has been one of the worst years in Vince McMahon's life, and I don't want to see him take that out on us as fans because I think he can sometimes do that. But it's all really complicated because there's just that element of deceit from the investors. Imagine if you were a WWE investor, Rob, you bought stocks in WWE, haven't you? I know it's a small
two shares 20 years ago. Yeah,
2 shares 20 years ago. But imagine if you'd have put in a couple of million. I mean,
well,
you'd be wanting to know how things are being run. So to lie to your investors is illegal.
I mean, perfectly honest, I would have cared less, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because I just don't care about things like that. As long as I'm getting me dividend checks for 21 cents every 6 months, then I'm happy.
Just see Rob at the shareholders meeting. You own one stock of share? Yes.
Two shares.
Do you still own them, Rob?
Well, I haven't been told I haven't.
No, genuinely. Do you still own the shares, and how did you? What made?
I haven't sold them. If that's what you're asking, over the course of the last.
You've never sold them anyway.
No, I haven't sold them, so I do own them. I don't know where my share certificates are though, and they did stop sending us out the annual report about 6 or 7 years ago, which I assume was just because they were losing money on us.
You can get them transferred into digital. You can get that all done digitally now.
They'll probably send it to an old email address that I don't even use anymore, I'd imagine. But yeah, I still own the shares, yes.
You could be sitting on thousands. To be honest, though, I'd just love to see...
No, I'm not. I'm really not.
Not after last month.
No. That's all right, though, to say, look, I'm a shareholder in the WWE. I mean, you're at least somebody on this show can say that, to be honest. I mean,
well, you could say it if you get online after the show and just
but is it even possible to buy stock? Because is there not a certain amount that would be completely all bought by other people? So you'd have to wait for someone to sell their stock.
I don't know, but I remember I bought it as soon as it went public. I remember buying it.
You can buy in it pretty much any time, generally speaking. If you want to buy shares, you don't have to wait for the people to sell. What it would just do, when the more people buy, it's hard to explain, but you can just go on now and buy if they're publicly trading.
I must actually have a look. I must have a look at my options and see what a stock of share in WWE.
Go on, do it. Why not treat yourself? Buy 3. Go on.
I used to work.
You be my boss.
I used to look up WWE's profile every now and again, just out of curiosity. Just look at the companies that I'm interested in, and I did used to do a peek of WWE.
That's reaching for his phone. It's like that time. It's like that time I decided to make myself a director of a company. I mean, the ludicrous nature of it. Like, why would you do that? Well, you do it because you want to put on your CV that you're a director of a company. What do you do? Well, I can't tell you that. That's private, So it's
company business.
That's it. And so, I mean, it is a shame about the XFL. To be honest, it is a real shame. And I think as well that because originally the XFL could have been a great project back, if you like, back in the day. It lasted for at least a full season. To be honest, if coronavirus hadn't have occurred, it would have probably taken as much of a miracle to see it continue to a second season. So I'm not sure that it would have necessarily survived. The NFL have very much dominated American football in America for generations. It's like somebody going up against the, Major League Baseball or the National Basketball Association. It's not.
The way Vince had planned it out, he got big network deals, but to air it, but he wasn't making any money on that. He was hoping that after the third season, it would be successful enough for the networks to turn around and go, okay, now we'll pay you. and we'll pay you big money.
Right.
So he'd not made any money off of the first season being on TV. He was waiting for the third season, which he was confident would happen before he's made any profit, before the channels would the network be like, oh, we want this. So he's not actually made any profit. He's just lost millions on this. I think it probably would have. I think it would have carried on. I don't think it would have rivaled NFL. I think you're right. I think, like you said, that the NFL is like the WWE, where it's the number one in its game. You're not going to rival that. But I think XFL could have been a fun little alternative that would have just simmered along in the background. I don't think it would have flopped. But like, who knows?
Yeah.
Like I said,
it's a bit like there is alternatives. Yeah. Because there's the Canadian Football League as well, isn't there, and things like that. So there is room for it. And I know that the original XFL did inspire a few things for NFL, like the camera angles and the way that they do the coverage. Apparently, inspired a lot for what modern NFL is now. I don't know much about it. Just I've watched a YouTube video summarising XFL as a whole. But apparently the original did, but this one just didn't even do anything. Nobody, like you say, when yourself, you didn't know that was on.
But if you are a fan of American football or sports, the current XFL was a million times better than the last one. It was professional. It was polished. It was like a proper.
There's no promos,
rather than just a little WWE project. The one had before.
Wasn't the backstage segment in the old one as well? Wasn't there what like Vince McMahon going, "God damn it, film the cheerleaders' dressing room" and things like that?
Yeah.
Promos from their footballers called like "I hate you" or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. This one had none of that, none of the shtick, none of the cheesiness. It was a very, very professional, very slick football league. Yeah, he employed CEOs to take. It's just something so big and grand to go under. It's quite sobering, really.
Absolutely. Just a little bit of news from the stock exchange at the moment, more specifically with the Dow Jones. I've just found out that if you want to buy a stock of WWE shares, they're currently trading at $38.46 a share. That is a rise of 2.67 on yesterday's market close. To give you a comparison, a stock of eBay share on the Nasdaq will currently cost you $35.72 pence. A stock of Netflix share will cost you, a single stock will cost you $413.71 pence. And a current stock of Walt Disney will cost you $105.96. So currently, Netflix is outdoing Disney by 4 times to 1. So the money
How much was Netflix's again? Sorry, Wayne.
Sorry?
What was Netflix's cost again?
Netflix, a cost of a single share, and it's gone up today by 4.25%, is $413.64.
Wow.
In comparison to WWE, the cost of a single share is $38.44. It's actually
I might buy some shares then.
So I might actually buy a single stock of share in WWE.
Yeah.
Actually, that's I want to be a shareholder. I want to do something with my life.
Tell Vince McMahon what to do.
How much did you pay for your stock, Rob? For your share?
I can't remember. It's in 2001. It was. I can't remember, to be honest with you, but it was probably around about $38, I think. I don't know.
It was, you doubled your money?
No, I think it was, each.
Oh, each. So you broke even.
Yeah, probably. No, but I, even if I wanted to sell them now, I couldn't. I don't know where the certificates are or anything.
Oh, well, never mind.
I think they're at my mum and dad's, but I can't be bothered to even look for them, to be honest with you.
That's a shame. We could take a photograph and put them up on the website for the fans.
Well, I do know where one is. I had it framed by the company who I bought it off. God knows why. And the second one, I don't know. I just don't know where it is. But if you want us to at some point get a hold of it, I can do that.
Interesting.
I mean, let's be honest, like at some stage we're going to have to start buying stock in CCW. That's going to need to happen, man. That's going to go through the roof.
Well, I mean, if WWE is worth $38, what would you think this 38 pence? No, it's not even that high.
38 pence, really.
No, I know. Well, he's not worth anything, is it? I mean, to be fair. I don't care what I say about that man or his stupid promotion because of what he said about me on Facebook today.
Oh, yes, of course, of course.
Did you see that?
Well, I mean, you know.
He claimed, Wayne, he claimed that I was ugly. Now look at this.
I think you know, I think sometimes with the best of intentions he can be misguided. I mean, we love him listening into the show and sending his texts and all that, but sometimes he can be a little mistaken. Rob is a beautiful man, so that's all there is to it, really.
Thank you.
That's sort of, and I mean the best looking one, to be honest, out of the lot of us. I mean, to be fair, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening on the radio, you're spoiled for choice. But the best looking of the lot of us would be, of course, lovely Damien, who is so beautiful that he decides not to anger us, so he basically turns off his camera on purpose. That's what he does, you know. So,
thank you.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. Where is Damien? Is he still here? Can you listen to me?
Yeah, still around. Sorry.
Oh, he's still in.
That's all right. That's okay. I was just complimenting you. It's absolutely fine. While picking my nose on a live broadcast, I do apologise. Right. All right.
To be honest, I always sort of figured out that it was best for everyone that I don't put myself on camera because it's like looking at my face is a little bit like trying to read in the car. It's okay for a couple of minutes and then you start to feel a little bit sick. But you know,
that's harsh. That's harsh.
That's tough, man. That's tough.
It's not true, but I love the analogy.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Anyway, what are we going to talk about? So obviously we don't have a massive amount of time left on tonight's show, but I thought that what we would touch on briefly would be the WWE and as Lucas mentioned, essential work. And I know Lucas and Neil, you guys have been following this story. What exactly is going on at the moment with coronavirus in the WWE?
Well, it's one of those things where obviously everyone's on lockdown, or not necessarily lockdown, but a stern quarantine where you shouldn't be leaving the house unless it's for essential reasons, getting food, medical reasons. So if you're a business, you should really only be open if you are, a nurse, a doctor, an emergency service,
a wrestling promotion,
providing food in some way, something like that. What has also been deemed as essential work by the government in America, by Florida, is WWE. Now, this is really strange because at one point the plan on Friday just gone was to film SmackDown live, and then immediately after film everything up to and potentially including Money in the Bank. Then, literally minutes before we're about to film everything, the next 6 weeks worth of stuff, Vince McMahon pulls the plug on it and says, no, I want you all to come in, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, whatever it is, and we're going to film live like we normally do. And now that is radically increasing the risk of the virus and disease spreading. People coming in and out of the building, interacting with each other on a regular basis, 3 or 4 times a week, as opposed to just being there for one day. So that's very, very dangerous. The reason for this is because the deals that they've got with USA and with Fox is exclusively for live content, with the exception of 3 taped episodes a year. But Vince McMahon obviously wants to use those 3 episodes a year for Christmas, maybe when they do the ones where they go help people in Iraq or whatever it is, I don't know. But the UK show is usually a tape delay because of time difference, so they want to use the tapes for that. So because they feel networks and big companies, corporations, are going to want to be looking for reasons, looking for excuses not to pay out at this unprecedented time. Vince McMahon, because he's that way inclined and very money orientated, he's thought, they're going to try and screw me out of money. They're going to try and get me out of money here because I'm not producing live. So he said, no matter what. Apparently, he was quite aggressively pushing it. It's going to have to be live. It's going to have to be live. I'm not doing pre-taped. It can be quite dangerous for that. Tim Strange has actually commented on one of our posts earlier today, saying he's actually all for it though, because when you think about it, really, it's a business decision, and this isn't a hobby for Vince McMahon. It is his life, like XFL was. But if he risks losing that contract from that Monday income from Fox, from USA, that's not just his bread and butter. That's the majority of his income. So even though it's a ruthless business decision to go out and endanger people, from a business standpoint, it's probably the right decision to make. And Tim sort of left a comment, I think it was on your post earlier today, Wayne, when you posted about this, saying that there's a lot worse businessmen out there that have done a lot worse than this. And if he doesn't do it, when you've got to answer to investors, to people like that, to the board of directors, if he doesn't go ahead with the live TV, it could be seen as financial sabotage. So he would have some investors and legal ramifications to answer to if he didn't go ahead with this. So it's a catch-22. It's an awkward situation. There's the danger and the morals of filming live, but then there's the business ramifications and the legal standpoint of not filming live. Odd catch-22 that we're in. Me personally, I would have liked to have seen them pre-tape it, because you can get away with more. You can polish the show. You can be a little bit more creative with it when it's pre-taped in this empty arena environment. But it is what it is. Raw this week I thought was fantastic. It felt like a really good episode of 2016 NXT. I loved it. If they can capture the lightning in the bottle they had on Raw last night, moving forward, I haven't got a problem. I am just a little bit concerned. There's already been one member of staff come down with coronavirus. Apparently they haven't said who it is. I don't care who it is. But apparently that they were living with a roommate, and after the Raw tapings, after Mania, they went out and met with a friend for food who was a nurse or a paramedic or something like that. They picked up the virus. Apparently now they're okay. Now, I didn't know you could get better from coronavirus so quickly. For me, I thought it was a case of going away and isolating for a week. So maybe there's some holes in this story. But apparently the person now, they haven't said who it is, that has picked up coronavirus. It's only one member of staff. Apparently they're okay now. So who knows what's going on? Who knows? Imagine if someone else picks it up. Imagine if Jerry Lawler gets it. Do you know what I mean? Or someone like that. Because he was back on Raw this week. Personally, I hope we keep Jerry Lawler as far away from TV as possible. Love the guy, but keep until this is blown over. Let him.
Could one of the members of the staff refuse to work then? Could they say, I would prefer to quarantine? So even if a wrestler, like say, what if Drew McIntyre said, no, I refuse to wrestle? Would they let him stay at home?
They would have to let him legally. Yeah.
Sorry, James.
Sorry, they would have to let him legally, but they wouldn't have to pay him because he's self-isolating through his own free will, basically, as a precaution.
WWE said they won't punish anybody that wants to self-isolate. You know, they're like that. They have a bit of a silver tongue, a little bit of a forked tongue. They might say one thing and do another. Apparently, there's no heat on Roman Reigns. But you know what WWE can become.
To be fair, he's got underlying problems anyway, so it's the best thing for him to do, actually, is to...
And he lives with elderly people. I think his wife's just had a kid, so,
and he's still recovering, technically.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. Best thing for him is to stay away. Same with Daniel Bryan, grew up with asthma, keeping TV.
There's loads of wrestlers who,
underwent surgery. To keep them off, keep them away. Ryback was saying in one of his tweets that he feels everyone should just go on strike and just be like, not doing it. That's his standpoint.
I think it's interesting because it raises questions with like the Premier League in this country as an example, where there's been a lot of talk that if the Premier League is not finalised, both for the teams at the top and the teams in relegation, there's massive legal consequences, who goes up, who goes down, and that kind of thing. and certainly I think in terms of points, 3 or 4 teams in the Premier League are currently on the same points in the relegation zone, and it's only goal difference. So that's an even bigger problem. And I think one of
how would you get around that?
So normally, if they're all on the same points, it goes by goal difference, and those who have allowed more goals into their nets effectively would basically be lower than those who haven't. But the idea then would be that they may even have to have a couple of court cases, because if the Premier League say, right, that's it, the league is finished, many teams will go to court to go, well, was I relegated or not? Because there's a lot of cash prizes and bonuses that go with going up and down. There's parachute pay involved in going down for your first season. And of course, you get bonuses if you stay up, and you get bonuses if you get promoted from the old first division.
I mean, this whole thing affects the non-league stuff as well. I mean, on a local level, I mean, you got like, I mean, they basically said that anything underneath league football is cancelled. So, I mean, that's pretty much Nobbled Cell Shields, who were pretty much ready to move up to the next level, so to speak. They were ready. They were in for promotion. Obviously, there's more discussion of that with Nova's non-league football show on the Monday nights between 8 and 10. If indeed that is still airing, I'm not 100% certain of the schedule at present, but
I believe they are. They aired last night, I believe, and they aired the week. So they're doing something alternative. They're bringing you some alternatives to those shows.
Ah, brilliant! Cool. I mean, it's far from my level of sort of far from my area of expertise, but as I say, if it's affecting it, you've got to think the amount of sort of small leagues that there are that have just basically been told, "Nah, that's it, season's done. We're not counting this, we're not counting that." It's it is gonna sort of have major ramifications going forward, as you say, on legal levels and such like. I mean,
yes.
I mean, with the WWE situation specifically, there was something that came to that I was reading that apparently Linda McMahon's running some kind of campaign there, like a super PAC or something.
What's this? I've not heard this.
Yeah, apparently Linda McMahon's sort of involved in a super PAC of some description. This is sort of vague memories of reading through an article that was like quite a lot longer than I really was able to pay attention to at the time. But there is something in there that people are saying could have affected the decision as to whether WWE stays open as an essential business or not.
I think money in the bank is quite interesting, because when I heard that was going ahead at WrestleMania, I was quite sort of angered, because I thought, well, you know what, if the shows have to go ahead, fair enough, but please don't have another pay-per-view in this format. You know, it's okay to do WrestleMania because that's so special, or SummerSlam if that needs to happen and we're still in this situation, fair enough. But please, not just your average pay-per-view from an empty arena. I kind of think with Money in the Bank, they could do things a bit differently. They could do a kind of a King in the Ring tournament with singles matches. They could have maybe a quarterfinal, a semi, and a final on the same night. It minimizes the amount of people involved in the event. I kind of think that would be a great way of doing it. They could do that for the men and the women, and basically have just a selection of singles matches on pay-per-view, and that might help in some way. I think that would kind of help tackle coronavirus to an extent.
Do you see them using? Do you remember in the WrestleMania ladder match, the one just gone, that Jimmy Uso took a bump from the ladder to the outside of the ring, but you didn't see him hit the floor? I assume there was a crash mat there, and they edited it.
Yes.
To make it look.
Yeah,
do you think we might get that in Money in the Bank, where people fall off of things head first, neck first, but we don't see them hit the concrete because it's filmed in a way to disguise that? Maybe we might get something like that, Pat. The build to Money in the Bank has been really good. I'm quite looking forward to this. I'm not sure what. For me, I don't think the crowd not being there will take away too much.
No, I don't think it will. I mean,
I
Money
don't
in the
know.
Bank's an important match, isn't it? But
Yeah.
if they were going to do that, they should have had it as part of WrestleMania. It's like, you know how they used to have the Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania, and they did one on NXT last week. They had a Money in the Bank match on NXT last week, didn't they, for the women?
It
Where she
wasn't
got the
Money in the Bank.
briefcase.
It was just a number
It was
one
the same
contenders
thing.
contract. Yeah.
It's the
Great
same
match.
thing,
In
though.
fact, it was a cracking match. And now we're going to get Io Shirai, who's the best wrestler in the world, versus Charlotte Flair. Dream match.
Oh yeah, that's going to be amazing. That
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing. That match.
I think
Anyway.
I think there's a lot of things that can be done. I mean, I especially like the whole Buried Alive, the Firefly Funhouse matches. I think that's WWE thinking outside the box, whether it's Triple H or whether it's The Undertaker, whether it's AJ Styles, whoever it is coming up with those ideas, they are basically thinking outside the box. And I think a lot more of that is needed because it's nice to have that different sort of content. Yes, do a closed set, do it in another. It's just to give a change of atmosphere as well, because you know there's very little they can do at the moment that would involve the crowd participation. So now that that's removed, find something else to kind of think on your feet in that respect.
That's made me think, Wayne. Did you guys see the Tommaso Ciampa versus Johnny Gargano match on NXT last week?
Yes, I did.
It was filmed like a movie again, but it wasn't like wacky and crazy like the WrestleMania matches. It was all based in reality. It was just basically the match, a normal no DQ street fight, just filmed very artistically and done with very
A bit like the No Man Standing match, sort of. The Last Man Standing
the last man
match.
standing. Yeah. It was just a very violent match, but it was filmed almost in like a Lucha Underground style, where it's got the high Hollywood cameras and it's all filmed like a movie. Yet it was just a normal wrestling match, but it was them brawling to the outside of the ring, going outside, fighting out the arena, brawling back to the ring, and weapons, blah blah blah, you know, the usual. But it was filmed in this crazy suspense. I think they can make.
That's what they should do anyway. I think that's how wrestling should be these days anyway, personally.
I mean,
I think you need both.
I
think you need WA old-fashioned, traditional wrestling style. If I was WWE, and I wanted to bring this up before, you've got two brands. I would have SmackDown as everything that All Elite Wrestling promised it was going to be, a realistic, gritty, sports-based product.
Yeah, like more
and then
wrestling
have
based.
Raw,
Yeah.
Lucha Underground 2.0. Then you've got your wacky, movie, crazy thing that's shot like a film on this channel, and on this channel you've got your sports-based, realistic, gritty wrestling. You've got both. You've got two brands, WWE.
That's what SmackDown was going to be to begin with, wasn't it? It was going to be the more wrestling-based show.
I remember when they said that, and we all believed it.
Yeah. It also was going to be an all-female show as well, wasn't it? At one point.
It was, yeah. So they say.
If you like wacky, weird, and wonderful, remember again to keep an idea on our YouTube channel. Coming up very soon, I will be reviewing a WWF magazine that arrived in the mail. I'll be honest, it was slightly late. It's got The Undertaker on the front cover, and it's from March 1994, and it includes the merchandise catalogue included with it. So if you want to see this...
That could be two separate videos.
Yeah, the purple gloves.
It's got The Undertaker with the gloves. It's March 1994, and it's WWF magazine, and it's got the merchandise catalogue in it as well. So keep an eye out for that video. It will be coming up hopefully in the next few days over the YouTube. I'll be sitting down and having a look at that magazine and basically going through some of the very bizarre things. I'm fairly sure you may recognize some of the faces as well in the merchandise catalogue. I'll say no more. So
I know what you're gonna.
Just keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, I think that unfortunately is bringing us towards the end of our show here on Nova Radio Northeast 102.5 FM, and indeed out there in YouTube and on our Facebook page, on our Twitter, and really there's only a couple of things left to say. Of course, the first is to thank everyone tonight for the show. I'll begin by thanking myself. Thank you, Wayne. You're very welcome, Wayne. No, thank you. And I'd also like to thank, of course, Rob and Lucas and James and Neil, and of course the wonderful Damien. So thank you very much for that.
And Nurse, thank you.
Anytime. Thanks for having us. It's been a lot of fun as always. I'm looking forward to next week already.
Yeah. Excellent. No, absolutely, as are we all. And of course, we end with one final piece of information just coming through from the producer, who tells me that, yes, we can confirm that Dr. Hook is not a medical doctor. We can confirm that. Thank you very much. In the meantime, you see, Rob, I try. I do try.
You do. And you occasionally succeed.
Do you know what? Just if you can, Damien, what we need to play now on Nova as the show ends is Sylvia's Mother by Dr. Hook and the Medicine People or Medicine Man. Anyway, thank you once again, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you hopefully again next week, and hopefully you'll see some of us even doing videos on YouTube. So
content on the YouTube.
Film the positions or something, we'll like
in various configurations.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, guys. If you want to follow us on social media, you can find both our Facebook and our Twitters at Announce Spanish. You can drop us an email, ask us anything, or get in touch with any queries about the show, or if you want to get involved, drop us a line. That's Spanish Announce Table at protonmail.com, and you can find our YouTube channel at tinyurl.com/SAT Wrestling.